Hello, welcome to another Drive-In Double Feature podcast. I'm Ryan,
I'm Nathan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two spooky movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday throughout the month of October. But before I get into any of the spooky nonsense, we have to talk about our Patreon over at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast. It is scary how much content we have on there, and it will give you such a fright with how good of a savings you'll get. You'll be jumping out of your skin.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's on over at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast. Check it out for only $5 a month, but don't worry, all of our main content, it's still free for you guys. Don't worry.
And that's the scariest part.
Yeah, like that we would give it away.
I couldn't believe it.
Anyway, but today on Thursday, we're going to be talking about 1992's Braindead, aka Dead Alive, and that is directed by Peter Jackson. What?
Wait, the Lovely Bones guy?
My favorite Peter Jackson movie.
Yeah, that's the one that always comes to mind.
You know, they really say he came to his own during the Lovely Bones.
Yeah, one right before the Hobbit movies, the greatest trilogy.
Lord of the Rings, that was just kind of like a warm up.
Yeah, he was getting there. He was working his way to the Lovely Bones. And then when he made the Hobbit trilogy and he stopped basically making narrative movies, what a great end to your career.
Yeah, bravo to him.
But no, for real, Peter Jackson, the Lord of the Rings guy,
yeah,
a great director.
Another Best Director winner that we're talking about after William Friedkin, John Avildsen. So join in the ranks of the Drive-In Double Feature lore. And this is actually not the first time you and I have talked about a Peter Jackson movie. If you guys remember, which probably a lot of you don't, we did talk about Meet the Feebles, which is another extremely graphic, along the lines of this type of movie, but it's all involving puppets. So if you ever want to hear that, which you may not, those episodes are kind of rough, to be quite honest with you, but at the same time, the movie is still pretty crazy if you do want to check it out along with this one. But as Nathan was saying, this does predate Lord of the Rings. So if all you know about Peter Jackson is Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, King Kong, you would be very shocked when you go back and look at his work predating these movies, because you'd be like, oh my God, this is the same director? I don't believe you at all.
Yeah, no, it's crazy to think that he made disgusting horror movies, but like what's even weirder, right, is his next movie after this was Heavenly Creatures, which is like a drama.
It's a straight up drama between two girls. So
yeah, so I mean, this man's got range, I guess. He can work on a lot of different stuff.
Now, yeah, you think maybe, J.R.R. Tolkien's like saw Braindead and they're like, that's him. That's the guy.
Yeah. What movie was it that they saw and they were like, yeah, this is it?
I think it was Heavenly Creatures.
It was Heavenly Creatures, okay. And then they were just like, Meet the Feebles, not even thinking about that.
Yeah, definitely not. But yeah, this one is very much a splatter movie. It is a zombie movie set entirely during 1950s England. I'm not sure why it was set in the 50s. I don't understand the significance of that, but it's main plot line is a real awkward, shy guy that has lived under the thumb of his mother, kind of like Willard was, and he has to kill a bunch of zombies.
Yeah,
that's kind of the main plot of this movie.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Well, Paquita, a woman, is chasing after him for love.
Yeah. So how the movie starts is there's a expedition of this guy trying to get back this Sumatran rat monkey back to New Zealand, and he accidentally gets bit by the monkey, and so all the people living there. Oh, and the island they go to is Skull Island.
Can you
which is
believe that?
it's just King Kong's island.
Yeah, and this man would go back to go make the remake for King Kong. I mean,
And there is, so I mentioned the Sumatra rat monkey. There is an Easter egg in King Kong where there's like a one
yeah,
of the crates that says Sumatra rat monkey.
yeah, which I think that's a fun Easter egg. I learned that today from Tony over at Hack the Movies. He
Oh,
brought
did
that up.
you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I actually did not know that connection. Actually, I've never seen this movie before. It's only like existed as like when I was a kid, I'd go to the video store and I'd see the covers and I'd be like, that cover's really scary. And I never watched it. And here I am now.
So you had zero clue what this movie was.
Well, I knew what it was. I know it was a bloody, gory, messy movie, but I've just never seen it.
Yeah. Um, I had the same experience. You know, I'd go there and I'd see that would be one of the VHS tapes, which if you've seen it, it's a woman that's spreading her lips open with her
Mm-hmm.
hand, and there's a little skull in her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks really freaky. And I remember I would always see it in the video store, and I was thinking, oh my god, that's got to be the scariest movie ever made.
Yeah.
Little did I know that this might be one of the most cartoonish movies I've ever seen. So
Yeah, it's like watching like a gross cartoon, the nastiest cartoon you could watch.
yeah,
Have you seen this movie before?
I have. So
Okay.
I knew what I was getting into, but I still watching it now. I mean, it's probably been a good 10 years since I last watched it, and it still catch you off guard with a lot of like the gore. Because I mean, like I usually deal pretty well with gore, but I mean, some of this stuff in there is just so disgust. Like, not even like like, oh, I can't believe they showed that. It'd be like, oh, like this is disgust. Like that looks awful. Like,
Yeah. So I think I forget what movie it was we talked about. It was a gory movie. I was like, I ate during it. I actually tried to eat during this one. And I couldn't. I actually couldn't. I mean, maybe I started eating at the worst part, and if you know what this part I'm talking about, uh,
I don't, because there's so many.
yeah, there is, but there's a specific eating part of this
Oh
movie.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, I can't. This movie takes like blood and guts to an extreme level. It's a lot of fun though. Like it's a special effects like just a special effects like amazing movie. I mean, it's obvious what he would go on to do in like the Lord of the Rings and stuff from this movie.
Yeah, it so it definitely pushes the boundaries for a lot of these gory types. I think it was Wizards of Gore we were watching,
Yes, yeah.
and at that one it was like kind of like stupid. Some of the gore scenes where it's like they would be pushing like a metal rod on somebody's stomach, and they would just pour blood on their belly. Like, oh no, like they were
Yeah.
impaled. And this one, it's they show everything, so it's kind of like this moment where you knew what kind of movie you're getting into when the guy's body's getting hacked up in the beginning of the movie. But
Yeah.
what I do like is how comical the movie is a lot of times, because
Yeah.
it definitely makes you laugh with the gore, which you don't really think you're supposed to laugh at these types of things. But what I really like is when the beginning of the movie is Paquita is actually in love with this meat guy that shows up to her grocery store and delivers meat,
Hmm.
and she's like, "Oh, I love him. He's so attractive." And then her grandmother uh, shows like does like these tarot cards. And it's like, "Oh, you're actually gonna fall in love with this type of man." And Lionel shows up, which I said is the awkward man that's kind of a mama's boy, shows up, and she has no interest in him in whatsoever. But he knocks over these cups of pens, and it turns into like the same shape that's on his tarot cards. And
Hmm.
she's just like, "Oh, well, obviously, I'm supposed to fall in love with you." Like,
Yeah, I love that. And it's like her fighting like an upward battle to be with this man because the card said so.
yeah, it's very funny. And the mother has no, she very domineering woman, like demands a lot
Mhm.
out of her son. And they takes him to the zoo, and that same rat monkey is there. And even like beforehand, that rat, it looks so disturbing looking. It's just
Yeah, it's like a stop motion gross mess.
Yeah, it's like this gross, like a mix between a rat and a monkey,
Yeah.
and it bites the mother's arm, and then she stomps on the rat monkey's head, and it's just like, again, so unbelievably gross. Like she's like
Yeah.
literally her high heel is like impaling this monkey's head.
Yeah. Well, what's even grosser is the rat monkey like bite or murders like an actual monkey, and like the zookeeper has to like hold this dead monkey in his hands and just kind of throws it out. And I this movie is so funny, just like little things like this guy who's the zookeeper just picking up this dead monkey and acting like it's just not a big deal in front of these people, and he obviously has the cigarette glued to the corner of his mouth. It's not even in his mouth. I don't know, it's just goofy.
Yeah, and she got bit, so it's like the same deal as like how a zombie movie works. Is now she's been infected, so
Hmm.
that's how this whole thing spreads. But it takes a minute for her to get fully infected, and she's still trying to do like her little social gatherings. And this is the scene I believe you were talking about. Is
Yeah.
she invites them over for dinner? It's like this couple, and it is. I was like I had already eaten, but like at that point, I'm like my stomach was just churning. I'm like, ugh, like
No, I was gonna say, yeah, it's just it's so gross because her body is falling apart. Like pieces are falling off. She's oozing blood and pus. It's not just red blood, it's like yellow too. And they invite this couple over, and it gets really gross whenever he's like, "Oh, we're not gonna leave without any pudding," and then he serves custard, and she ends up getting the blood and pus into his pudding, or sorry, into his custard, and he just starts eating it, and he's like, "Oh, it's so good," but
and
that's
his
not
wife
even the worst part.
his wife sees it go in there and doesn't say anything.
Yeah, she just looks grossed out. I was like, all right, whatever. But the mom's ear falls in, and she starts eating her own ear mixed with this pudding. And I think it's just gross because it's just like this bloody fake ear mixed in with food, and it's gross looking. Oh man, it was nasty.
Yeah, that one. That scene in particular was pretty gross because it's all these macro shots of people eating this stuff. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, they go through all that scene, and it doesn't. They definitely amp it up towards the as this movie goes along. I mean, if you're wondering, like the movie's very light on plot. It's very
Yeah.
much this is a very very visual spectacle. I mean, if blood and gore really bothers you, obviously I don't recommend this movie at all. Like this is a very extremely gory, bloody movie. But if you like that sort of thing and you like a lot of horror comedy, like along the lines of an Evil Dead or something like that, this is definitely a movie you should see.
Oh yeah.
I really like this movie a lot, and I would go as far as to say this is a gore masterpiece.
Whoa. The real wizard of gore.
I mean, truly, I mean, like the effects that they do in here is very impressive. It's just like, and when you learn too, that they only had a budget of about $3 million. It's crazy what they're able to do.
Yeah, I think the fact is that it used 300 gallons of fake blood in this movie, which is insane. But no, I agree. I mean, this is my first time watching this. I love this movie. I had so much fun watching this movie. It is gross. It's funny. It's everything you could want out of a horror comedy.
Yeah, and I mean, it just like I said, it just keeps upping the ante as the movie goes on, and
Yeah.
just the ridiculousness of this whole thing. Like he goes to a cemetery, and he ends up getting confronted by because they finally think like his mother dies, and there's a cameo from Peter Jackson in this movie too because
Hmm.
he plays the assistant undertaker and here, and he doesn't look anything like the Peter Jackson like you would like now, like the big dude with the beard and long hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very much like a smaller guy with glasses and curly brown hair.
Hmm. Which is kind of what he looks like now. Didn't he lose a lot of weight?
Yeah, I think so. I haven't seen a recent picture of him,
Yeah,
but
because he doesn't make many. He makes documentaries and that's it. But
that's
no,
it.
but this graveyard scene is really funny too, with like greasers that come up in like a costume at the graveyard.
Well, I was gonna say in the embalm because they're embalming his mother, and like
That's right. Yeah.
that's also really gross because like the embalming fluid just starts shooting out of every pore of her body,
Yeah.
and like her eyes literally pop out, and the Undertaker just does like the Three Stooges eye poke, like back get the eyes
Yeah.
back in there.
Yeah,
And
it's funny, because I've seen Meet the Feebles, just how much this movie is like Meet the Feebles. Maybe not as like trying to be offensive, because Meet the Feebles is just an offensive movie. This one doesn't really have that element, but it still has like the weird characters, like the doctor who's like a weird German that's just slobbering all over himself. Just like, I don't know, Peter Jackson just has this gross stuff in his mind that he has to put on film.
yeah, there's a lot of really gross stuff in here. But the one thing I'd noticed is since we watched The Feebles not too terribly long ago,
Mm,
there was a lot of a lot of the actors in this movie were in Meet the Feebles because I could
good to
hear
know. Yeah.
by their voice because like the dude on like the Undertaker was the big walrus in Meet the Feebles,
Mm.
and the priest was Sebastian, like the fox that had the big musical number in there. So, but
The sodomy music number.
yeah, exactly. So uh, that's stuff like that, which was really funny to see because you notice all these Easter eggs now. But yeah, after like the cemetery scene because he's trying to dig up his mother because they think his mother died, but he's trying to steal her body away, and these like greasers show up and start hassling him. And
One of my favorite lines is whenever they're pissing on his mom's grave, and he just the main character goes, he just very matter of fact, "You're pissing on my mom's grave." I don't know, just something about that line had me die.
yeah, it's a very silly scene because he's literally peeing on the mom's grave, and then
uh,
her hand shoots up and of course grabs his penis and just like
yeah.
and he screams bloody murder, and then he turns into a zombie too, and then the one of the other greasers turns into a zombie, and the priest who presided over his mother's funeral shows up randomly, and this
Mhm.
priest knows kung fu
Of course
and
he does.
one of the best lines is I kick ass in the name of the Lord.
Yeah, wonderful. And no, and I love this whole scene because he is kicking ass, and I think it ends really well too.
Well, I want to say that I know it's supposed to be funny, but the moves that he's doing are actually pretty. It's not like camera trickery. Like he's actually like
Yeah, oh yeah,
kicking. He's like
like
it's
doing full
actual
on
kung fu.
splits, kicks, and stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of
Yeah,
fun. Um, but no, I mean, what sucks is he ends up dead himself. But getting stabbed through the heart. But see, what's funny about this movie, and I guess what I didn't expect, was that the main character, he takes it upon himself to take care of all these zombies. He's like, oh, I feel bad for my mom and this priest, and he basically takes them all to his home and he takes care of them on the
yeah.
side.
It's like this weird family. It's like he takes one of the greasers back because the priest before he turned into a zombie ended up like karate chopping this guy's whole body, like every limb off of this guy's body.
Hmm.
And again, too, the priest does not react to like zombies are not like a known thing so far, and just he karate chops a guy's arm off and just starts hitting him with it, like, oh yeah, this is like totally nonchalant about it. And
Hmm.
uh, but yeah, the priest gets bit, so he's got to take care of the priest, the greaser, and then this nurse who was trying to take care of his mom also got infected. So he's like, he's got this little family of zombies, and he's like preparing them dinner, and they're all
Hmm.
just sitting around the table like eating dinner as zombies.
Yeah, and then there's a really great gross shot of because one of them has her neck is off, like almost all the way off, but it hangs on and is hitting in the back, and she can't eat normally. She can't eat; it doesn't go down properly. So the dude has to like lean her head back and feed her food through her neck hole. It is,
Yeah, that's nasty.
yeah. I don't know how he thought of that. But yeah, and it this goes to cartoony links like the greaser getting the fork stuck in his throat and he has to like basically get it out of him.
Well, he pushes the spoon in his mouth
Yeah.
so hard that it goes out the other part of the back of his head,
Yeah.
and there's still food on it. So his mom like goes over and steals the food off the spoon, and the greaser's like gets all mad.
Yeah, God, if you haven't seen this movie before, like me, you got to see it just for these scenes.
Yeah, it really. I mean, we could just sit here and describe the whole movie beat for beat, but I mean, there's
yeah.
I just want to talk about some of the more notable scenes, which there's a lot in between, but there's one. So, like I said, the priest and the nurse, as zombies, um, end up having sex together, and she gets pregnant and gives birth to a baby zombie.
Yeah, and I wasn't expecting this, and this is like
It's just disturbing on whole
yeah,
on all kinds of levels.
yeah. This baby is so ugly, like disgusting, and I love how you can tell when it switches from a puppet into somebody in a baby suit running around. But
It's like a little person, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and but it's funny all the same. And this baby character, this is something ripped straight out of a cartoon. Like I can't think of it, like Baby's Day Out almost, where this baby is just won't die. Everybody's trying to kill a baby in this movie, but it just always ends up getting out of it.
Yeah, and so one of the things I was reading is that Peter Jackson actually came under budget for the movie,
Really?
and he had $45,000 left, or the equivalent of that New Zealand dollars. But anyway, he said so they took that money and they shot the playground scene. So immediately after this, Lionel takes the baby to the playground, and it's just a very comedical scene where it's like a baby is running around and he gets hurt and he's like kicking and hitting this baby and this baby's not and,
and the moms are watching all while he's like kicking this baby on the ground.
but the funniest part about that scene that made me laugh is like he's literally punching this baby in the face and the baby's not getting hurt, so it's not like a real shocking thing. The baby's laughing or whatever, and
yeah.
There's this drunk guy like drinking from a bottle, and like he sees him like punching the baby, and he like lifts up his glass. And he's like, "Yeah,
yeah, love that."
I got a kick out of that, but
but I there's this whole subplot in this movie of who is he in relation to?
That's
the
his
main
uncle.
Character. That's his uncle.
That's his mom's brother.
Yeah, and who is written completely out of the will, and he finds out about the zombie family and basically blackmails him into getting all the money and the house. And this guy is a sleaze bag, awful person, because he accosts poor Paquita. Paquita did nothing wrong.
So there's a lot of stuff that happens in between, a lot of other grosser scenes that do happen. I mean, like I said, we could describe it all here, but the main event of this movie is the big finale. So the uncle invites all these people over for a house party, and of course, it figures what happens. The zombies get out, and all these people end up getting infected and becoming zombies themselves. And it's just after that, it's just kind of like a compilation of like ridiculous killing scenes.
Exactly. It was like watching vignettes of like different things going on in the house.
Yeah, and I mean some notable ones. Like there's one where this woman, she's just screaming, and then all of a sudden she gets like punched in the back of the head, and like the fist from the zombie like comes through like her mouth. So it's just, and he's like fighting with this woman still attached to his wrist.
Yeah, there's that one where it's just intestines that are on the ground, and those are alive too, and they keep farting. I wasn't expecting that. The baby, later, I really like how this was done, where Paquita is trying to blend the baby, put the baby in the blender, but like the baby constantly hops out and everything, and I think she ends up slapping him in the face with a frying pan. It's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, and like, and the baby also has like another big moment where there's a one of Paquita's like friends shows up, and
Mhm.
she's been bitten, so you think she's going to turn any second, but instead the baby comes in from behind and like breaks open, comes through this woman's face like an Easter egg, like breaking.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else happened. A
Uh,
lot. It's just so much. I think there's one where the uncle like takes one of those what do you call those baker's presses where you roll things in the middle of it.
oh, I
Um,
thought it was like a laundry mangler or whatever.
that might actually be what it is. But yeah, he pushes a body through it, and the body is just like it's like a meat grinder where like just stuff is coming out one end of the body, and it's just blood and pus. It's disgusting.
Yeah. Well, the uncle also has another really funny part where he just has like two meat cleavers,
Hmm.
and like this big wall of zombies are just like headed for him. He's just like, "Come on, you go!" And then you just see him like chopping away, and it turns into like fast motion, and you just see like
Hmm.
body parts just flying, and then the scene ends with like all these like different legs and arms and torsos on the ground just wriggling around, and he just lights up a cigarette and just like, yeah, like,
Yeah, proud of himself. There is a big main event to like all of this, right? Like I feel like there's one scene that I've seen clips from and I think is the most memorable is the main character coming in with the lawnmower and just chopping up everybody on the mansion's main floor.
yeah, that's kind of like the big to do scene of there that everyone always remembers, I feel like. So they
Mhm.
have he goes around, he's just literally just walking with a lawnmower and just and just like all these, you just see blood just spraying everywhere, and that's kind of like the big scene that everyone always, I always think of that scene
Yeah.
before. But they were saying, I forget, like I think they said like per like this is one of the bloodiest movies ever made, just in terms of like sheer amount of volume of blood
Yeah.
is. And I forget, there's it's like it shot like 5 gallons of blood like every couple of seconds or something crazy like that.
Good God. I couldn't imagine being on this set.
Yeah,
Especially
well,
like the mansion is just red by the end of that scene and he's like in the movie he's slipping around on blood and I wouldn't be surprised if that was real.
right. Well, that's what I was thinking. Like that was what I was going to say. Like there's so much blood on the floor. Like there's standing blood on the floor. So it's
Yeah.
just, you couldn't possibly not slip on on there. And he's covered from head to toe in blood. And um, if there's going to be one thing I would kind of nitpick, I guess maybe, but I know that's kind of Peter Jackson trying to be shocking, is like towards the end of the movie where they have to have a big finale, like, or a big boss, and it turned, his mom has been gotten like these superpowers,
Hmm.
but she's naked, and she's like this giant
Yes.
mutated monster. So she has big boobs in her butt, and it's just
Yeah.
at that point I was like, okay, this might be crossing the line just a tad.
Yeah, maybe just pushing it. No, I get it. I mean, it's definitely grotesque. And all it made me think of is, man, Peter Jackson's got some mommy issues. That's all I. That's all I got out of this movie.
Well, I watched the making of, and he and of this movie, and they do interview his mom
Oh, really?
for the documentary. Yeah. Um, but anyway, the movie kind of end, kind of how you expect. They save the day, and he
Yeah.
gets the girl and all that. So I like I said, there's a lot to you could really explain. The only way you could be able to know is if you actually watch it yourself. Um, but yeah, I do want to talk about the movie itself, because I actually found a making of for
Oh,
this on
nice.
YouTube, and it's like this. It has this real smarmy like interviewer, like going in talking about like, because there was this big, I think it was more like a news report maybe, but they were talking about the making of this movie and how New Zealand was not going to be funding certain movie projects, because with the countries like that, the government does set
Yeah,
aside
they.
a
Yeah.
certain amount of money to fund these types of projects. And this news reporter was like talking to the New Zealand film commissioner, and he's like, is this what you want New Zealand to be known for? Like these extremely gory movies?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, is this the type of movie you'd be funding? And to the guy's credit, he's like, yeah, Peter Jackson is, this is, he grew up in New Zealand. He's using New Zealand actors. He's using like
That's
stuff
awesome.
he saw in New Zealand, and he said, I think he's going to be a real major player in the future. And
And
this
look
so this
at
is
him.
and this because this was 1991 when the interview was filmed, and 10 years later he was a major director. So
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Like people like saw like something huge in him from this point. I mean, even J.R. Tolkien's like group saw something in him from like Heavenly Creatures.
I mean, I did make the joke earlier, but it's, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, if I saw those types of movies, I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily be able to see beyond those and be like, I
Yeah,
think I would give them a shot. And that's just
I
me
think
probably not having an eye for talent. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, I think I wouldn't. I don't think most people would make the connection like to Peter Jackson making Lord of the Rings, and I'm pretty sure there were conversations around him being the director of those movies at first. But you definitely could see talent in this one, and that he could go on to make some really like fantastic movies. Like even if it was just horror, he was going to make horror movies that were really fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I guess that guy that ended up, John Watts, who ended up directing Spider-Man, Homecoming. It's like he did like this,
Hmm.
what was it, like a freaky clown movie like beforehand, or
Really, I didn't even know that.
yeah, he made that movie Clown, which is like a clown horror movie. and,
Gotcha. Okay.
and so just kind of funny like how you get to see directors roots like that. But but I guess if you think about it, it's like James Cameron, directed Piranha 2, and Joe Dante doing all those other Roger Corman movies beforehand. So
Yeah, I mean, Martin Scorsese did that too. Well, he didn't make horror movies, but he worked with Roger Corman and stuff like that. He made the Boxcar Bertha movie.
he's never made a bad movie. Okay, are all classics.
Oh yeah, have you ever seen Kundun or Kundun?
I have. I liked it.
I've never seen it. I was gonna make the joke that nobody's seen it.
But no, I'm the point I'm trying to make is like, yeah, you should be able to see the talent, and he made some really impressive scenes in there. So I mean,
Mhm.
it really is, I guess at the end, it's really not surprising that he did go on to do some really great things after this, and kind of interviewing him and interviewing all the other people like in the making of this movie, and they're
Mhm.
interviewing like the cast, and there was one, they're pretty much like, oh
But
yeah,
anyway,
I think this is going to be a real funny movie, I think this will be
Mhm.
fun. And um they got to the girl that was playing the nurse character,
Mhm.
and she was like, yeah, I think I believe in him. I think, like, she was like kind of on the fence on like if this is going to be a good movie or not.
That's funny. So not everybody believed in him.
No, but I mean, when you're having to wear all that makeup and being asked to do a bunch of ridiculous things like that, I can kind of understand
Oh,
her
oh yeah, for sure.
apprehension. They asked Peter Jackson. It's like, well, this character obviously has a lot of mother issues. Like, do you have any issues with your mom? He's like, no, I don't have any issues with her. And they actually interview his mom, and she's like a typical mom. She's like, oh, I don't really care for this type of movies. And uh, they asked like where he got his real gory sensibility about it, and she was like, I'm not really sure. He was playing with like a little friend of his, and it was like a girl, and he said they would go and take her Barbie dolls and they would hang them, which
Oh
was
my,
a little odd.
you'd be scared you have a serial killer on your hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It showed that a lot of people believed in him. And, at that point, he had made Meet the Feebles and Bad Taste. So, I mean, it wasn't a secret of what the type of movies this guy was making. So,
Mhm.
um, now, unfortunately, this movie was a box office bomb. It
Yeah.
didn't really perform up to the standards that they wanted. Um, it don't like in the U.S. It did not. It didn't even make $1 million. So it
That's
made like a couple.
crazy.
So
It must have just been a cult hit because I mean, my parents knew who Peter Jackson was. I remember them saying they had seen this movie. I don't know about in the theater, but it must have been a rental store like staple.
so wait, did they know who Peter Jackson was before they watched Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure they did, or at least they figured it out. Like, they said this is the director of Lord of the Rings. You're like, oh yeah, I've seen those movies or
Oh
something.
wow, okay. Maybe they watched Frighteners.
Yeah, because probably I remember it's weird. I mean, I don't. My aunt had a copy of Frighteners and Heavenly Creatures, and I know they used to go see movies together all the time. So maybe,
Yeah, maybe.
yeah,
I actually like Frighteners a lot too. I think it's a really good. I think it's that one's a
yeah.
pretty good movie
I
too.
need I need to rewatch it. That's one I haven't seen in a long time.
Uh,
Yeah,
but anyway, it ended up becoming a cult classic, and like I said, it ended up becoming like a real staple amongst horror movie fans just because of the sheer blood amount of this movie. And like I said, I mean, for a horror fan, there's not really much more you could ask for in terms of like if you love a lot of gory, bloody stuff. I mean, I couldn't. I don't think I could name another movie that would be even gorier than this one. I mean, I
no,
know. Well, there are other ones I know, like Tokyo Gore Police or some like stuff like that. But
yeah,
a lot of those, like I feel like they use a lot of CGI effects or stuff like that,
yeah,
and this one, like I said, this is all practical effects,
yeah.
and
And there's something about the practicalness of the gore that just makes it that much more gross because it's a real tangible thing.
yeah, I mean, like when you watch stuff like Mortal Kombat or whatever, like the newer video games, and they show all those gorier stuff, like yeah, it looks like oh wow, that's pretty good. Like it looks so good, but
Hmm.
just seeing it like in real life, like in a not in a practical effect sort of way, it just amps that
Yeah,
grossness of it, and it just looks like just the fact you see somebody eating bloody pus is the part that you're just like that's so disgusting.
exactly. No, it's definitely out of what I've seen the ultimate gore movie, and I don't think much else is going to ever pass it.
No, and like I said, very comedic movie too. It does not take itself seriously in the slightest. So um, I give this movie a pretty high recommend for amongst horror movie people. Like as I said, if any of this stuff sounds disgusting, you don't want to see it, I definitely avoid at all costs because this is going to be something that we're not going to like. But as a horror movie, somebody that loves horror movies, it's a very very high recommend.
Yeah, and I just mirror exactly what you say. Very high recommend. I thought it was fantastic. If you like a lot of movies that we talk about in the show, this is probably right up your alley.
Yeah, definitely. But we still got some more bone chilling movies, Nathan.
Yeah.
So, Nathan, what are we going to be talking about next time?
Speaking about bone chilling, what about
The
bone?
Bone Collector with Denzel Washington?
No, just the collector. The
Okay.
other one. Yeah. No, we're talking about something bone tingling. The Tingler from 1958, and that is streaming over on Tubi.
Fantastic. Cannot wait to be tingled. And, and but if you have any thoughts, opinions about this show, please send us an email over at drivein-double-feature-podcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to X us over at X at DIDFpod. And once again, check out the Patreon at patreon.com/drive-in-double-feature-podcast. But until next time.
Until next time.